All right, guys, Eric here, back up in Bethlehem, PA here out at the beautiful Bethlehem Golf Club for the summer. And in today's video, we're gonna talk about how to lead during the downswing with the right arm. Now, recently I had a guy come in for a lesson who said, Eric, I've been trying to get my right arm and right elbow forward for like the past 20 years, and I haven't been able to. And maybe you struggle with that same thing. And I wanna tell you what we did in our lesson that really helped him out. That's gonna help you as well. Now, leading with the right arm during the downswing, the whole point of why we try and do this, outside of we see good players on TV doing it, is getting the arm forward enough, the trail arm. What that does for us is it helps us hit the ball solid. When I get my arm forward enough in front of me towards the target, that helps get my hands more forward, which gets the club head more forward, right? Gives me the shaft lean at impact, which allows me to get the club head to hit the ball first and compress the golf ball. You'd be hard pressed to find a really good ball striker who has the right arm too far back at impact. It'd be very easy, and let's show from face on side by side with me. At impact, we see players look at impact like this. Their hands are about inside of their left thigh, and to get to there, we have to get our right arm forward. Now, unfortunately, for the gentleman I was working with, and you might be in the same camp, he wasn't able to get the right arm forward because he was doing it incorrectly. Okay, usually when you're not able to get something in your swing, you're not doing it right, you're doing it incorrectly, or number two, there's something earlier on in your swing that's causing you issues. Now, in this video, I want to show you the two things you need to do it correctly. And I'm going to give you some literal terms and then we'll make those easier, okay? So literal terms during the downswing, how do we get our right arm more forward? There's two ways. Number one is through adduction. Adduction just means this. Hold your arm up in front of you, your trail arm like this, and you want to get your arm to move towards your body or towards the target. So quite literally, it's this distance between your pec and your bicep shortening, or your right bicep getting closer to your pec. I'm moving my right arm across my body, okay, across my body. That's adduction. Now, obviously, when I do that, if I have a club in my hand, does that make my arm and hands go towards the target or away? Towards the target, right? And towards the target would lead to the shaft lean we want. Good context. So adduction is one piece. The second thing is external rotation. Okay, so when I hold my arm up like this, if I have my palm go down, like I'm winning an arm wrestling, that's internal rotation. We'll call that bad for the sake of this video. If I went the other way, that would be external rotation, losing an arm wrestling match. That's good for the sake of this video, okay? So how you get your right arm forward during the downswing is through adduction, bicep closer to the pec, and external rotation, which I want you to think about as getting your trail elbow closer to your lead elbow. I'm gonna show you some examples here in front. Now, I'm blending those two motions together. I'm gonna give you a drill to help feel this at the end, but I'm blending those two motions together to start the downswing. What am I not doing? I'm not taking my elbow and just trying to jam it down, straight down towards the ground. That's not what I'm looking for. Now, are my arms gonna lower when I do a downswing? Absolutely. But not from me trying to jam my elbow in front, okay? I'm looking to get my elbow in front in two different planes of motion. From the face-on angle, what I'm looking for in terms of in front is I want to be able to have, and I'll show you players doing this, the elbow be closer to the target than the wrist. If my elbow stays closer to the target than my wrist up until about this last parallel position, but certainly throughout the whole downswing, that puts me in a position where now my arm is in front and I can deliver it correctly. The opposite would be the elbow behind the wrist. See, when the elbow goes behind the wrist, how I'm already starting my early release, that's bad. If the elbow stays in front of the wrist, I can hold that trail wrist angle and deliver good impact. Now, how do I keep my elbow in front of my wrist? I do that through external rotation. That means I'm moving my arm in this direction, or I'm moving my right elbow closer to my left, closer to my left, closer to my left. See how when I do that, that gets my elbow in front, not behind, okay? That's part number one. And as I'm doing that external rotation, which is the right elbow towards the left, I'm feeling some of that adduction, which is my bicep pressing in towards my pec. Now, when you make a downswing, do you have to feel those things? No. But if you've been trying to do it and it's not happening by itself, then do you have to feel those things? Yes, you do. It's not going to fix itself. You have to feel those things. Can you just fix those with good body motions? Probably not. Do you want good body motions? Absolutely. Do we need to have that with it? It would help a lot. But if you're someone who has that right arm back and you're struggling with the steep downswing, the early release, you're gonna have to manually, you yourself, make that happen. It's not gonna happen by itself. So back when I was giving this lesson, that's where we started. Okay, we had like an 8-iron out, we're hitting balls. I said, hey, let's start with just some general feels. And of course, like anything else you learn, you start slow and build up. So we went up to the top of the backswing and I had him start to feel, hey, feel your right elbow getting closer to your left. What does that feel like that's happening? What he would have and what you might have is the right elbow getting farther from the left in transition. Elbow's getting farther, steep shaft like this. So feel the right elbow squeezing in towards the left and feel the elbow forward of the wrist, right? We started to hit little half ones like this. Squeeze the right elbow in towards the left, the elbow's forward of the wrist bone. And he was hitting shots and he was compressing them really nicely. And of course we looked on video and what happened? What happens every time you do something you look on video first? You don't do it enough, okay? That is normal and expected. So we went through the process of exaggerating that motion, the elbow in front of the wrist. It's the same motion you'd have if you were throwing a ball, skipping a rock, any sort of those. The elbow leads the wrist. That's external rotation. That's piece number one. And there's lots of different drills, and I'll show you the one we did. But in the beginning, I just want to give them a general sense. Squeeze the right elbow in towards the left elbow. So this gap between this elbow and this elbow, get that shorter and feel the elbow in front of the wrist, basically for as long as you can during the downswing. Elbow in front of the wrist. And that's going to help at impact get the handle more forward for that consistent, solid contact. There's some ancillary other benefits with it. You'll probably get more speed. Instead of the elbow being back and you throwing it back here, high loft, you can have that speed and throw be a little bit later, but mainly we're doing this for solid contact. So we did a set of probably about 10 of those, just getting that feel. Right elbow closer to the left, elbow in front of the wrist. And he hit all those shots very solid. Now the checkpoints we're looking for, we're gonna put up probably Adam Scott on the screen from both sides. We're talking about where the elbow is in this front plane of motion, which is that draw a dot on your elbow, draw a dot on your wrist, have this closer to the target than this. That's the goal up until you get to about parallel to the ground. Certainly by the time you get to hip high, the elbow should be in front of the wrist. But there's also this plane of motion, which is the behind me. The elbow also has to get in front of you from this way, meaning it can be behind you. This would be my elbow back, behind the seam line of my shirt, or in front of me. Sort of think right elbow in front of my hip, okay? Here to here. Now, how do I get the elbow from back here to in front? You guessed it, external rotation and adduction, okay, adduction. Arm across the chest. So we did a couple of these motions first, but he needed more of the adduction part. So what we did, you can hold your club up in front, feel your bicep, get closer to your pec. Start with your hand kind of outside your trail shoulder. My club's up in the air, doesn't matter much. Get the bicep pushing across the pec. See how that's pushing my handle forward. Now, if I did that down here, see how that's pushing my handle forward. But Eric, you're just doing that with just your arm and no body. Yeah, I'm just showing a drill, right? This is exactly, that's what he said to me, and not in that voice, but basically the same thing as this. Of course, when I do this, I'm gonna turn my body as well, okay? Of course I'm gonna turn my body. But to get a feel, just feel that right arm press against your pec, okay? Press against your pec. So in the beginning, he's feeling the right elbow in front of the left, and he's feeling the bicep pressing against the pec. And to me, that's not too much to do at one time. Those are the correct motions that we need to learn to have in there. Okay, so let's do the same thing. The right elbow is in front of the right wrist and the right bicep press against the pec. Elbow in front of the wrist, bicep across the pec. And he hit the ball again, sort of like that, maybe not quite as far, but sort of like that in that it's very solid, very solid. Now, like I mentioned, when we're training this, you're gonna feel these things in and of themselves. Of course, as I'm doing this motion, part of what brings the handle and the right arm forward is the body motions. We do need to turn. But if you're struggling with your right arm motions, that's not always just gonna magically fix it, okay? Like, oh, if you just move your body right, all this stuff gets fixed. Sometimes good body motions help things, no doubt. But for this in particular, I believe you're gonna need to manually feel that. And so you wanna blend those two feels together. Elbow in front of wrist, right bicep across the pec. And I'm having good body motions, good body rotation, etc. And as we did that, of course, when he left and when you would leave this video, I want you to have something so you know if you're doing it correctly. Okay, so that's always video. If you know the checkpoints. The checkpoints will show the Adam Scott again are this elbow's closer to the target than the wrist. I've said that 100 times, right, on purpose. And also from down the line, the elbow's in front of the hip. Elbows in front of the wrist from this side. Elbows in front of the hip from this side, okay? And those are the right arm feels. Now, we sort of got into this conversation about how the body works. And so he was feeling those right arm feels and just kind of gradually feeling his right shoulder working forward as well, just to make sure that he continued to turn towards the target. That's sort of the mantra we left with. Elbow in front of the wrist, bicep against the pec, get the right shoulder forward. Now he's gonna work on those things for like the next 12 months. So that's like the whole book, right? Not just chapter 1. And if you're struggling with it, you need to approach it that way too. I'm doing just this probably for like 12 months. But of course, I also want to give him a drill, right? We all like drills. And one of the ways I like to feel this, and there's several, is if you take an alignment rod and put it underneath your armpit. So, you know, you can have about 3/4 of the stick in front of you. There's several ways this helps, but just to get the downswing feel, when you go up to the top of your backswing, let's say about halfway back, this stick is going to press against your arm. When you do this correctly to start down, external rotation, adduction, you're going to feel like the stick presses more into your left arm as you're squeezing your right elbow closer to your left, as you're feeling the bicep pressing against the pec. You'll feel this when you do this press against your arm more. When we did it incorrectly, and he saw this right away, that goes immediately off my left arm. And you might be able to see that kind of from both sides, but that goes immediately, good version, pressed against it. I'm exaggerating there a little bit. Bad version, off of it right away. And you can actually make swings and hit balls with it where you feel that press against to start down with. Last little caveat, okay? When I do this right arm motion and I externally rotate and get it across my chest, if anything, that's gonna serve to open or close the club face. Open, that will not close the club face. Some of you guys that have an overactive right side is because the face is too open and then you have to really work to square it, okay? So this, getting these motions we want, leading with the right arm and right elbow, like you see all the best players, they are only able to do that because they have the club face square enough soon enough. Now, at the end of this video, we're gonna put a card on the screen with a video on how you can square the club face. I'm not gonna go through that here, we've talked about that, but you have to make sure your club face is square enough soon enough to be able to do this, okay? Of course, the body motion helps. You're gonna need to manually feel these. Elbow in front of the wrist, pec against the bicep. Use video with it. The point is to get the handle forward. I'm not just shoving, okay, I said last caveat 3 times, I got another caveat. I'm not just shoving my hands down the target line when I do it. Some people say, Eric, I did that and I'm shanking it. That means your hands, when you're doing this, are going down the line too much. Because I'm rotating my body, my hands should arc around me to the left. My hands arc around to the left. So I can do those right arm feels and still hit the ball solid and not hit it on the heel because my hands arc around. So just a little caveat if you get some heel shots. Hope you guys enjoy this. Again, we're gonna put that video for closing the club face. You wanna check that one. We are back in Bethlehem, PA. We'll put a link down below. I'm doing some in-person coaching, some one-day private golf schools if you want to see or check those out, put that down below. As always, if you can't come here in person, would love to work with you at CogornoGolf.com. We built that where you get unbelievable value, right? For $69 a month, you get like literally $4,000 worth of videos. You get monthly training with us. You're in our community. We're in there 24/7. We've helped a lot of golfers. Would love to work with you there. We'll also put that down below. Click that like button. Appreciate you guys watching.